Ed Maloney drove Route 44 for 27 years. Same bus, same stops, same hours. He woke up before the city did, ran a route through neighborhoods that were just starting to light up, and came home tired in the same ordinary way that working people have always come home tired. He wasn't remarkable. He'd tell you that himself. He remembered people's names, knew who had job interviews that week, who was heading to chemotherapy, who'd just lost someone and needed a nod that said, "I see you. You're still here. Keep going." He offered no speeches, no advice, just presence. Consistent, warm, unassuming presence. On his last Friday, his supervisor mentioned a small gathering. Nothing big. He walked in to find 200 people, each one holding a piece of paper, a date and a story, something Ed had said or done that had changed their day, or their year, or their life. Ed stood in the doorway for a long time before he could move. "Here's what I want you to sit with before we go any further. You are probably someone's Ed, right now, without knowing it. Someone is carrying something you gave them, a word, a look, a moment of being seen, and they haven't found a way to tell you yet. Maybe they never will. That thought should do something to you." Let's go back to the beginning. Ed Maloney grew up on the east side of Cleveland, in the kind of neighborhood where nobody had grand plans and nobody was embarrassed about that. His father drove trucks. His mother worked dispatch at a taxi company for 30 years. Work was dignified in his family, not because of the title attached to it, but because of how you showed up for it. You were on time. You were reliable. You treated people the way you'd want to be treated on a bad day. Those were the rules. They didn't need to be written down. Ed finished high school, did 2 years of community college, and at 22 saw an opening at the Transit Authority and took it because the benefits were solid and the schedule was predictable. He was a practical man. He didn't think of it as a calling. He drove a bus. He planned to do it well. That was the whole story, as far as he was concerned. But something happened over the years, slowly, quietly, the way most important things happen, that turned a job into something else. It started with the names. He'd always been good with names. He'd hear one once, and it would stick. He couldn't explain it. And he discovered, early on, that calling a regular passenger by name when they stepped onto the bus in the morning, just that, just their name, said with recognition, changed the texture of the interaction entirely. It wasn't a technique. He wasn't performing. It was just what you did when you actually paid attention to the people around you. Then it was the patterns. He started noticing things without trying to. The woman in the gray coat who rode every Tuesday and Thursday, but never on Monday, until the Monday started too, and he knew without asking that her schedule had changed and probably her life had changed with it. The teenage boy who got on looking wrecked every other Friday, which Ed eventually understood corresponded to custody arrangements that weren't going well. The older man who'd stopped making eye contact around the same time he stopped wearing his wedding ring. Ed didn't pry. He didn't ask questions that weren't his business. But he noticed. And noticing, it turns out, is its own kind of gift. Because most people move through most of their lives feeling unseen. Genuinely, aching unseen. And here was this man, this driver, this ordinary working person in a uniform at 5:40 in the morning, actually seeing them. Not asking anything back. Not expecting recognition. Just seeing. That's where it started. Not with a decision to be good. With a habit of paying attention. Let me tell you about a few of the pieces of paper. There was a woman named Carol who had gotten on Route 44 on a Wednesday morning in March of 2009. She was on her way to a job interview, the third one in 2 months after being laid off from a company she'd given 12 years to. She was holding her resume in a folder on her lap, and she looked, by her own description, like someone trying to hold herself together with both hands. Ed didn't know any of that. He just noticed she looked like she was bracing for something. And when she stepped off at her stop, he said, without ceremony, without knowing if it would land at all, "You've got this. Go get it." For words. He doesn't remember saying them. He said things like that often. It was just what came out when he saw someone who needed a little wind at their back. Carol got the job. She kept it for 11 years. She thinks about those 4 words more than she'd probably admit to most people. She was one of the 200. There was a man named Derek who was 17 when he started riding Route 44. Quiet kid, headphones in, eyes down, difficult home situation, the kind that doesn't announce itself but that you can see in the way someone holds their body, the way they never quite relax into a space. Ed noticed. He started saying Derek's name when he boarded. Just that. Just Derek. a recognition, an acknowledgement that you are here and you are known. Derek is 34 now. He's a social worker. He works specifically with teenagers in difficult home situations. He gave a short speech at the party. He said Ed was the first adult outside of his family who made him feel like he was someone worth knowing. He said it simply. No performance. He just said it. There was an elderly woman named Pauline who rode the bus to her chemotherapy appointments every Thursday for 14 months. Ed knew where she was going. She'd told him once, matter-of-factly, the way certain people share hard news, straight, with no need for a reaction. He started saving the front left seat for her on Thursdays. He never made a thing of it. It was just her seat, and they both understood that, and she never once had to ask. Pauline finished treatment. She's been in remission for 6 years. She showed up at the party with her daughter and a photograph of herself taken from the bus window on one of those Thursday mornings. She brought it for Ed. These are 3 of the 200 stories, and every single one of them started the same way, with Ed doing something small, something that cost him almost nothing, something he didn't file away or even remember doing. Because for Ed, it wasn't an act. It was just how he moved through the world, one person at a time, one morning at a time, without keeping score, without expecting a return. Let me tell you what the room looked like. It was a Friday afternoon in a community center a few blocks from the transit depot. Ed's co-workers had organized it. They'd expected maybe 30 people. Former colleagues, a few regulars he'd mentioned over the years, his family. A cake, some speeches, the kind of send-off that happens 1,000 times a week in workplaces across this country and is forgotten by Monday. But the organizer, a woman named Linda who'd worked dispatch with Ed for 12 years, had posted something in the local neighborhood group 2 weeks earlier. Just a short note. Ed Maloney is retiring from Route 44. If he ever made your day a little better, come say goodbye. She expected a handful of responses, maybe a dozen people. The replies came in within hours and kept coming. By the morning of the party, Linda had over 170 RSVPs from people she'd never heard of. By the time the doors opened, there were close to 200. Ed walked in and stopped. He couldn't recognize most of them. That's the part he keeps coming back to when he talks about it. He knew their faces, vaguely, the way you know a face you've seen through a windshield 100 times. But out of context, out of the bus, in regular clothes, they were strangers to him. And yet every single one of them knew him. That disorientation, the gap between how much you know someone and how much they know you, is something most of us never get to see directly. Most of us will never stand in a room that makes the gap visible. Ed stood there and felt it, and he didn't know what to do with it. The pieces of paper had been Linda's idea. She'd asked everyone who came to write down a date and a sentence, the date they'd ridden the bus and the thing Ed had done that stayed with them. She'd planned to compile them into a small book. She hadn't expected what she got. People had written paragraphs. Some had written letters. A few of them had clearly been crying before they'd finished writing. Ed's supervisor read some of them aloud. He got through 3 before he had to stop and collect himself. And Ed, steady, practical, unsentimental Ed who'd driven through Cleveland winters for 27 years and never once complained about the weather, sat in a folding chair in the middle of that community center and tried to understand when, exactly, he had done all of this. When he had become all of this. The answer, of course, is that he'd been becoming it for 27 years. One morning at a time, without ever once thinking that's what was happening. Here is something we get deeply wrong about impact. We think it accumulates in proportion to effort. That the bigger the gesture, the deeper the mark. That the people who change lives are the ones who make big decisions, give big speeches, write big checks. We've built an entire culture around the idea that meaningful action announces itself. That if you're doing something that matters, you'll know it. You'll feel it. The room will go quiet. Ed's story says otherwise. What it did was small. Individually, each thing was genuinely, unmistakably small. He said a name. He held a seat. He offered 4 words to a woman with a resume on her lap. He caught a teenager's eye and said his name like it was worth saying. None of those things qualify as an act of generosity by any formal definition. None of them made the news. None of them required sacrifice or cost Ed anything beyond a second of attention and the decision to spend it well. But here's what happens when you do small things consistently, over time, to the same stream of people moving through your days. They compound, not in the financial sense, though the word fits. They build on each other, the way interest builds. Each small act creates a slightly warmer human being who goes out into the world slightly more capable of warmth. Carol gets the job and carries that wind at her back into how she treats her team. Derek becomes a social worker and sits across from a teenager who reminds him of himself and finds it a little easier because someone once found it easy with him to say, "I see you. You're worth knowing." Ed didn't plan that. He couldn't have. You can't plan the downstream effects of a kind word. You can't trace the ripple. You can only choose to throw the stone. And what Ed understood, not consciously, not philosophically, just in the practical way working people understand things, was that the stone was always available. Every morning, every route, every person who stepped onto his bus carrying something he couldn't fully see. The stone was always there. He just kept throwing it. Most of us hoard the stone. We hold it and wait for the right moment. The moment significant enough, the gesture large enough to justify the energy. We wait until we have something worth saying before we open our mouths. We wait until the act feels important before we make it. Ed didn't wait. He went to work. And 27 years later, 200 people walked into a room on a Friday afternoon to tell him what had cost him nothing and given them everything. That's not an accident. That's arithmetic. Small things, done consistently, to enough people, over enough time, equals something no single large gesture ever quite matches. Because the large gesture is a moment. The small things, repeated, those become a life. I want to ask you something, and I want you to actually sit with it for a second. Do you think you matter to anyone the way Ed mattered to those 200 people? Not the people who love you. Your family, your close friends, of course you matter to them. That's a different kind of mattering. I mean the people at the edges of your life. The ones you interact with regularly but don't think of as relationships. Exactly. The coworker in another department. The cashier you see every week. The neighbor you wave to but have never really talked to. The person who sits near you on the commute. Do you think you matter to them? Most of us, if we're honest, answer that with a quiet no. Or at best a shrug. We don't think about what we leave behind in those interactions because we assume we leave nothing. We're passing through. They're passing through. It's transactional. It's neutral. Nothing is happening here worth noting. Ed's story says that assumption is almost certainly wrong. What those 200 pieces of paper reveal is that people are paying much closer attention to the people around them than we ever realize. We are all being witnessed, not surveilled, not analyzed, just witnessed in the most ordinary sense of that word. People notice when you're consistently kind. They notice when you remember a detail they mentioned once, in passing, that most people would never bother to retain. They notice when you hold a space for them, even a small, physical, unremarkable space on a bus, because you were paying attention to what they needed. They notice, and they carry it, sometimes for years, sometimes for decades. The hard part, and this is genuinely hard, is that most of us will never have our Ed moment. We won't stand in a room and see the evidence. We'll go through our whole lives doing small things for people and never know what happened downstream. Never know which 4 words were the ones that mattered. Never know which moment of eye contact somebody needed more than you knew you were giving. Because we never see the evidence, we stop believing the evidence exists. We tell ourselves we're ordinary, unremarkable, that our daily interactions don't add up to anything that would fill a room. Ed would tell you he was ordinary too, and he'd mean it. But ordinary, as it turns out, is not the same as insignificant. It never was. We just convinced ourselves it was, because it was easier that way. Because if ordinary doesn't count, we don't have to be accountable to it. We don't have to show up for it every single morning for 27 years. Ed showed up, and the room was full. If you've made it this far with me, I want to invite you to subscribe to our channel and join us every day. This is what we do here. We find the EDS of the world, the people who change things quietly, without announcements, without waiting to be noticed. If this kind of story is what you've been looking for, stay. We're here. Now back to Ed, because there's something he said after the party that I haven't told you yet. A few days later, when the celebration was over and the quiet had settled back in and he was, for the first time in 27 years, not getting up before dawn to run a route, someone asked him what it had felt like. Standing in that room with those 200 people. He was quiet for a moment. Then he said, "I felt embarrassed, mostly. Not moved, not overwhelmed. Embarrassed. Because he genuinely didn't feel like he had done anything. That's not a performance of humility. That's the real thing. He went to work every day. He treated people decently. He paid attention. And to him, That was just the floor, the baseline, the minimum of what you were supposed to do when you were sharing space with other human beings. The idea that 200 people had come to stand in a room holding a piece of paper about something he'd said or done, that felt, to him, like a clerical error, like credit that had been assigned to the wrong account. That embarrassment is worth sitting with, because it means Ed was never doing those things in anticipation of this. He wasn't building toward a moment. He wasn't keeping a ledger of goodwill to be cashed in at retirement. He was just driving the bus. And that's exactly what made it work. That's exactly what made 200 people show up. Because we can feel the difference. We always can, even when we can't name it, between someone who is kind because they want something back and someone who is kind because that's simply who they are. Between warmth as a strategy and warmth as a character. Ed had no strategy. He had a character. And 27 years is a long time to be consistent in your character. Long enough for it to accumulate into something that fills a room. Long enough for it to become, without anyone planning it, without any announcement, a legacy. The word sounds too large for Ed. He'd hate it, but it's the right word. Here's what I keep coming back to, days after sitting with Ed's story. Not the party, not the 200 people, not the pieces of paper. Something smaller than all of that. That first morning, whenever it was, some unremarkable Tuesday in the early 90s, cold and dark and early. Ed getting on a bus he'd get on 1,000 more times. Pulling out of the depot, running the stops in the same order. Not thinking about legacy, not thinking about impact, not thinking about the fact that he was, in that ordinary moment, beginning to choose the kind of person he was going to be. He was just driving. But every morning he drove, he made a choice. Not once, not consciously, over and over, in every small interaction, in the texture of every ordinary exchange, he kept choosing to see the people around him, to say the name, to hold the seat, to offer the 4 words, to be, in that contained, unglamorous, 5:40 a.m. space, someone who gave a damn. 27 years of that choice, one morning at a time. And I wonder what your version of that looks like. Not the bus, your thing, the place you show up regularly. The people at the edges of your life who move through your orbit without either of you fully understanding what that means. What do you do there? In the small moments that don't feel significant enough to notice? Because if Ed's story teaches anything, it's this. The moments that don't feel significant are often the only ones that last. The big gestures are remembered by the people who witness them. But the small, consistent, accumulated kindness, the one that asks nothing and expects nothing and just keeps showing up, that's the thing that travels. That's the thing that gets written on a piece of paper and carried across town decades later. You don't have to be extraordinary to leave an extraordinary mark on someone's life. You just have to pay attention. You just have to keep showing up. You just have to treat the people around you like they're worth seeing, because they are. And so, it turns out, are you. Ed knew that. Not because someone told him, because he lived it, one morning at a time, until one afternoon a room full of people showed up to prove it. You don't need the room. The room isn't the point. The point is what you do tomorrow morning. If this story stayed with you, share it with 5 people. 5 people who spend too much time wondering if they matter. They do. And sometimes all it takes is hearing Ed's story to remember why. Subscribe to the channel. We're here every day, looking for the stories that don't get told loudly enough. And leave a comment. Tell us about your Ed, the person who showed up for you in a small way that turned out to be enormous. Or tell us what story you want us to find next. That comment matters more than you think. Ed would agree. He'd just be too embarrassed to say so.